In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the valve cover gaskets on your Honda Accord. This will be located on the front and back of the motor. Let's get started. Using a flat blade screwdriver, twist the plastic clips. And remove the plastic cover. Using a 10mm socket, loosen the clamp for the intake boot. Pull the intake boot off the throttle body. Ours is in a few pieces. We're going to remove this hose out of the throttle body. You should be able to pull this hose assembly out. I'm going to use a flat blade screwdriver to help the back of the intake boot off of the air box. This should come out as one piece. Ours is just in two pieces. Using a 12mm socket, remove the two bolts and two nuts for the throttle body. Leave everything attached to the throttle body and pull it straight off. Remove the connector on the side of the intake. There's a push button on bottom. Push on that, pull straight back. Remove the connector. Remove the hose clamp for the purge valve on the bottom hose. Remove the hose, remove the connector for the purge valve, push on the tab, pull straight up. Pinch the clamp, pull it straight back, remove the hose. Remove the little air hose. Using a 10mm socket, remove the bolt for the bracket. Drop the bracket back. Pinch the clamp and pull it back. Remove the hose. Using a 10mm socket, remove all 12 fasteners for the plenum cover. Lift up and remove the plenum cover. Using a 12mm socket, removed all 9 bolts. We can leave these 2 up top alone. We don't have to touch them. remove the intake plenum, pull straight up, and remove it from the vehicle. We're going to remove the intake plenum gasket. I have a piece of cardboard I'd cut out into the shape. So instead of using rags to stuff the holes, I'm just going to drop that cardboard there. Remove the two 10mm bolts for the harness cover. Remove the connectors for the ignition coils. There's a push button on the left side of them. Push on that, pull straight up, remove the connector. Using a 6mm hex head, we're going to remove the bolts for the coil packs. Remove the bolts, and then the coil packs. Pull straight up, pull them out of the vehicle. Pinch the clamp, slide it back, remove the hose off the side of the valve cover. Remove the 5 10mm bolts for the valve cover. There's 2 more in the back. Remove the valve cover. You may need to use a flat blade screwdriver to help you get under the cover and pop it off. We're going to remove the gasket. Using a razor blade or a light abrasive, we're going to go around and clean. We want to scrape away any old dirt or corrosion. We don't want to mar the surface, we just want to get it clean. When you're scraping, be sure you scrape away. We don't want to put any of this into the motor. I'm going to go through and remove all of our bolts from our valve cover. Pull straight up. They can get kind of stuck in there. We're going to remove the old tube seals. I'm going to use a seal puller. Go through and remove all of the tube seals. Using parts cleaner and a clean rag, I'm going to clean out where those tube seals were sitting. We're going to install the new tube seals. Before we do this, I'm going to put just a little bit of lubricant around it. Use something that's rubber safe. And these should push straight in. Do that for all three. We're going to clean up some of the dirt and oil that's on the top of this valve cover. Install the valve cover gasket. Be sure the flat part of the gasket is on top. We're going to go through and remove our old bushings from the bolts. We're going to pop that metal cover off. Pull the rubber down. Ours is more like plastic right now, so we're going to have to use a pair of cutters to cut this bushing off. And then pull it off of the bolt. And then remove the metal. Grab the new one. Push the bolt straight in. And repeat this process for every bolt. Before installing the valve cover, I'm going to give the motor side one more wipe. I'm just going to use a clean rag and some parts cleaner, go around the edge. We're going to install the valve cover down into place with the new gasket. Install it down into place. Push it down on the tube seals. You'll hear it kind of seal in this nice hollow noise. The one short bolt is going to go up top. We're going to get this started first. And go around and install the rest of the 4. Get all of these started by hand. Two more in the back. Snug the bolts down until they touch the cover. We're going to torque our valve cover bolts in 2 steps. In the first step, we're going to go to 7 foot-pounds. Our final step will be 8.7 foot-pounds. Follow along as I go. There is a sequence. We're going to start on the top short bolt. And then we're going to go to the bottom 2 bolts. And we're going to hit the 2 sides. Now onto our final pass at 8.7 foot-pounds. Install the coil packs. I like to plug these in as I go. When you put the connector on, push until you hear a click. If you don't hear a click, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Make sure your coils are fully seated. Install the hex bolts. Torque the coil bolts to 8.7 foot-pounds. Install the 10mm bolts for the harness. Snug them down and torque them to 8.7 foot-pounds. Install the hose onto the valve cover. Pinch the clamp, pull it back to its original position. Remove the connectors for the ignition coils. Push on the tab, pull straight up. Using a 6mm hex head, we're going to remove the bolts for the coils. We're going to remove the 10mm bolt in front of the coolant tank. Remove the bolt, pull the hose off the coolant tank, pull straight up and remove it. Remove the coils. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to remove 3 bolts for the harness, 2 for this rail, and 1 down here on top of the alternator. That should give us plenty of room to get this valve cover out. We'll go around and remove the 5 bolts for the valve cover using a 10mm socket. Using a flat blade screwdriver, I'm going to get under the valve cover, gently popping it up. Pull the harness out of the way and remove the valve cover. We're going to remove the dipstick. We're going to clean the engine side using a razor blade, scraping away from the motor. We don't want to scrape any of this into it. We don't want to mar the surface, we just want to get it nice and clean. Once we have it all scraped, we'll go around with a clean rag and some parts cleaner and give it a wipe down. Go around and do this for the whole surface. I gave our valve cover a little wipe down on top. Now we're going to go around and remove the bolts from the valve cover. Flip it over. Remove the gasket. We're going to remove the tube seals. These are supposed to be rubber, but ours are kind of like plastic. They should come out slightly easier. We're going to wipe down where our tube seals were using a clean rag and some parts cleaner. I wrapped a plastic pick inside of my rag to help me clean it, just to get into the corners. Install the new tube seals. We're going to use a bit of lubricant around the edge of these to help them slide in better. Push them straight down in. Install the valve cover gasket into place. We're going to put this off to the side. We're going to take the old bushings off of the bolts. We're going to separate the rubber from the metal. If you can push these off, go ahead and do that. In our case, we're going to have to cut them off. Just going to make a cut, pull everything off. I give these just a wipe down. Install the bolts into the new bushings. Push them straight on. Install the valve cover into place, pulling that harness out of the way. Get everything lined up. You'll feel the tube seals grab on, push straight down, and then get the bolt started all the way around. Snug down the bolts until they touch the cover. We're going to torque these bolts in 2 passes. On our first pass, we're going to go to 7 foot-pounds, and then our final pass will be 8.7 foot-pounds. Follow along in the order. Onto our second pass at 8.7 foot-pounds. Install the dipstick. Install the bolts for the harness. And then one more on top of the alternator. Snug the bolts down. Torque the bolts to 8.7 foot-pounds. Install the coils. I'm going to install the connectors as I do this. Push them in. When you push the connector on, be sure you hear a click. If you don't, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Install the bolts for the coils. Snug the bolts down. Torque the bolts to 8.7 foot-pounds. We're going to remove our cardboard using a scraper. Go through and scrape these surfaces, get them nice and clean. Take a clean rag with some parts cleaner. Spray down the rag. We're going to wipe off the area. Install the gasket. We're going to go through and clean our intake plenum, the intake plenum cover. We'll also flip this over and clean the other side. We're going to use a razor blade and just go around cleaning off. You don't want to mar the surface or scratch it, we just want to get it clean. Do the same thing on this top cover. Install the intake plenum. Install the bolts, get them started by hand. Install the nuts onto the studs. Go around snugging down the bolts. Torque the bolts down to 16 foot-pounds. There's a sequence, so follow along. This will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this will be 9. We're going to go around one more time. Install the top cover gasket. Install the cover. I'm going to go around getting the bolts installed. Get all of these started by hand. There should be one more bolt right there. We're going to snug our bolts down. Snug the bolts down until they just touch the cover. Torque the cover bolts and nuts to 8.7 foot-pounds. Your first one will be right here. Number 2. 3. 4. 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We're going to go around one more time, starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Install the throttle body. Get the bolt started. Get the nuts started. Snug them down. We're going to snug these in a cross pattern. Install the connector. Torque the throttle body bolts to 16 foot-pounds. We're going to do this in a cross pattern. Install the connector for the purge valve. Push until you hear a click. If you don't, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Install the hose onto the purge valve. Pinch the clamp, pull it back to its original position. Install the booster hose. Pinch the clamp, pull it back. Pull the bracket up. Install the vacuum hose. Get the bolt started and snug it down. Torque the bracket bolt to 8.7 foot-pounds. Install the hose from the valve cover to the plenum. Pinch the clamp, pull it back. Install the intake boot. I'm going to get it on the air box. Get the hose installed and pop it over the throttle body. Install the harness into the rubber clip. Snug it down. Be sure it's fully seated. Get it nice and tight. Give it a pull, make sure it doesn't move. Install the coolant tank. Install the hose onto the fitting. Get the bolt started in the front. Get the bolt started. Snug the bolt down. Install the plastic cover. Turn the pins a quarter turn. And you're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.